Welcome to Evaluation. This lesson is part of Module 04, First Fine-Tuning Project. Let's get started. Let's now look at Lesson 4.5, Evaluating and Testing Your Model. Here we can see the evaluation metrics overview. Let's now look at Overview. Here we can see the base was fine-tuned radar. Training is complete, but is your model actually good? In this lesson, you'll test your fine-tuned model's performance, compare it to the base model, and learn to identify when training went well, or when you need to try again. Duration, 30-45 minutes. Difficulty, intermediate. Let's now look at learning objectives. Here we can see the eval pipeline flow. By the end of this lesson, you will test your fine-tuned model with new examples. Compare outputs, base model versus fine-tuned. Analyze validation metrics. Identify overfitting versus good training. Measure quality improvement. Know when to retrain. Create evaluation test cases. Let's now look at loading your trained model. Here we can see the benchmark comparison. Let's now look at option 1, continue from training session. Here we can see the Rouge score explained. If you just finished training in the same session, model is already in memory, just switch to inference mode. Let's now look at option 2, load from saved checkpoint. Here we can see the perplexity versus quality. Load your fine-tuned model switch to inference mode. Let's now look at option 3, load from specific checkpoint. Here we can see the vibe check framework. If you want to test a particular checkpoint, load specific checkpoint, e.g. step 100. Let's now look at creating test cases. Here we can see the eval dataset design. Let's now look at example test cases for our JSON extraction project. Here we can see the model comparison radar. Test cases covering different scenarios. Let's now look at testing function. Here we can see the human eval setup. Let's now look at helper function for generation. Apply chat template format as chat. Apply chat template, generate decode extract, just the assistant's reply. Here's the JSON code for this section, starting with. Let's now look at comparing base versus fine-tuned. Let's now look at load both models for comparison. Load base model for comparison. Fine-tuned model already loaded above. Let's now look at comparison function. Base model fine-tuned model tested. Expected difference. Base model, verbose, inconsistent. Here's the bash code for this section. Starting with, based on the text, here's the extracted information. Fine-tuned model, concise JSON format. Here's the JSON code for this section. Starting with, let's now look at analyzing training metrics. Let's now look at load training history. Load trainer state extract loss history. Let's now look at visualize loss curves. Plot training loss, plot validation loss. Let's now look at interpreting loss curves. Let's now look at good training. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with training loss 3.0, 2.0, 1.2, 0.8, 0.6, steadily decrease. Diagnosis. Excellent. Model is learning and generalizing. Let's now look at overfitting. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with training loss 3.0, 2.0, 1.0, 0.3, 0.1, very low. Diagnosis, overfitting, Memorizing training data. Solutions. Stop training earlier. Use checkpoint where val loss was lowest. Add more training data. Increase regularization. Weight decay. Dropout. Let's now look at underfitting. Here's the bash code for this section. Starting with training loss. 3.0, 2.8, 2.7, 2.6, 2.6, barely decrease. Diagnosis. Model not learning enough. Solutions. Train longer, more epochs. Increase learning rate. Increase model capacity, higher low rank adaptation rank. Check data quality. Let's now look at quantitative evaluation. Let's now look at batch testing. Test fine-tuned model display results. Let's now look at manual scoring. Score each test case. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with simple extraction, 100% match. Let's now look at qualitative evaluation. Let's now look at what to look for. Let's now look at format consistency. Here's the JSON code for this section, starting with name, John, age, 45. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with name, John, age, 45. Let's now look at following instructions. Good. Model outputs exactly what you asked for, add. Model adds extra commentary. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with, here's the extracted information in JSON format. Let's now look at handling edge cases. Test with missing information, ambiguous text, multiple entities, special characters, very short long inputs. Let's now look at when training was successful. Let's now look at success indicators. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with successful training checklist. If all checked, success. Move to lesson 4.6, saving and sharing. Let's now look at when to retrain. Let's now look at retrain if. Let's now look at 1. Outputs are inconsistent. Symptom, sometimes correct, sometimes wrong format. Solution, train longer, more epochs, or more data. Let's now look at 2. Model is overfitting. Symptom, val loss. Train loss by 0.5. Solutions, stop earlier, use best checkpoint. Add more training data, lower learning rate. Let's now look at 3. Model not following instructions. Symptom, outputs don't match desired format. Solutions, check training data formatting. Add more examples of correct format. Adjust prompt template. Let's now look at 4. Base model was already good. Symptom, fine-tuned model, base model. Solutions, increase learning rate. Train longer. Use more challenging examples. Let's now look at complete evaluation notebook. Save as notebooks 03 first training, 04 evaluate IPN bar. C'est ça, viesc cell 1 load fine-tuned model. Is 6 cell 2 test function. Enter is ça. Let's now look at evaluation checklist. Here's the bash code for this section, starting with evaluation checklist. Let's now look at key takeaways. 1. Always compare to base model. Quantify improvement. 2. Check validation loss. Ensure no overfitting. 3. Test diverse cases. Edge cases reveal issues. 4. Visualize loss curves. Spot problems easily. 5. Manual review is critical. Metrics don't tell full story. 6. Iterate if needed. First training rarely perfect. Let's now look at what's next. If evaluation looks good, continue to lesson 4.6. Saving and sharing models. If model needs improvement, return to lesson 4.3, training configuration to adjust parameters. Let's now look at additional resources. Model evaluation, best practices. Comparing models, LLM evaluation guide. Your model is trained and evaluated. Almost done. That wraps up evaluation. Well done on completing this lesson. See you in the next one.